Hello, I'm Kevin. I have an award-winning ebook author, innovator, and a talented woman present with me. Kapitan is going to tell her story on Agree or Disagree, the podcast. As mentioned, this is Agree or Disagree, the podcast. My name is Kevin Olenek. Hope you're having a great day wherever you are listening to this podcast, whether that be on Spreaker.com, KVOLE, SoundCloud.com, KVOLE, on YouTube, Kevin Olenek, etc., 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 wherever your favorite social media site is. As a mature Canadian woman in tech, Kapitan, founder and creative director of Interactive B Media, is leading enhanced digital publishing with innovation by integrating, learn to read, visual widgets, interactive maps, audio, and video that increase reader engagement in ways that are both educational and entertaining. Interactive B Media is the multi-award-winning publisher of the enhanced Apple iBook title How to Say Cheese, a project 2 years in the making. How to Say Cheese, an interactive cheese journey, is an iBooks author original. To date, How to Say Cheese has won 11 awards, including 2017 Book of the Year at the iBooks Authors Conference in Nashville. Breaking down ebook barriers, How to Say Cheese is the first iBook to win a Next Generation Indie Book Award in New York and to be included in Simon Fraser University's Personal Library and a Gold Summit recognized along with the other gold winner in this category, NASA's Multi-Touch Interactive Sphere. And she joins us now. Hello, B.
Hello, Kevin. Wow, that was a mouthful. There's just so much to
say. I have
so much to say. That was helpful hearing someone else read that.
How did it feel to have someone read out your accomplishments?
It sounds surreal because 5 years ago, I didn't own a cell phone. So
Really? Fun fact. Wow.
So I've come a long way.
So let's, as I drop my pen here, live podcast. Let's talk about the start. Let's talk about how you got into this Interactive B Media. How did this become your baby project? Is it fair to say baby project, or is it your baby? Because I look at my podcast as my baby.
It is my it's my comeback baby. It's so I'm a mature woman, as you said, and I've been in tech for over 20 years, 21 years. I learned HTML on my maternity leave and Photoshop, and I started designing web designs with my then common law partner and parent to my son. My son is now 21, so that life is going by fast. But I survived a couple of dot bombs and learning how to do online shopping carts. Some of my clients were UBC, pharmaceutical companies, high-end artists, Seattle's Children's Hospital. I did their fulfillment, online stores. So it went on. The reason why you're going to go, well, how come you didn't have a cell phone 5 years ago, is just like anybody who's a human being, who's mature, life happens and you get sick. And that's what happened to me. I ended up a couple of times in my life, I really embraced working really hard for myself, and I burnt out, but that's not the reason why I was ill. What ended up happening was I have osteoporosis, and I lost my ability to walk. So I was on a cane, and I ended up using a majority of my savings, and I had to scale back on everything, and that included having a cell phone. So, and I was raising my son at the time, who was a teenager who liked to eat. Most 16-year-olds will eat you out of house and home. So at that time, I was at a turning point, and also on a lot of morphine. just to and I was on a waiting list. And thank God for Canada. Now, fit as a fiddle, you would never know that I did just this November. I celebrated 4 years of being well and walking down the street, and I walk now 40K a week on the seawall because I'm just elated to be healthy, and don't even take aspirin. So
wow,
yeah. So when I was not well and having my busy creative mind, I'm also an artist, and I have a very analytical mind. I found myself having these conversations with my higher power. I'm not a fully religious person, but I find myself saying that I'm spiritual. And I said, hey, whoever's listening, being my higher power, if I get through this pain and everything, I am going to make such a difference. I'm going to reinvent myself from this woman who's struggling to, just make ends meet to thriving. And I am happy to say, based on your intro, that it feels surreal that I'm having this conversation now. And not have I just thrived, I'm living my best life. So.
And we were talking off air about this, because some people message me and say, you know what, I'm proud of you, of what you're doing, and it's great. It takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of, well, this is about you, not about me. But it takes a lot, no, but
I'm proud of you too, Kevin. You're awesome.
It takes a lot of courage to pivot, and I was having a conversation with someone before this about like a few things, and I've had some interesting conversations before this podcast, which is funny, the serendipity of all of this. But it takes a lot of courage to do a pivot. It takes a lot of there's a lot of people that won't do it, or are afraid to do it, or feel like they're going to fail. And I heard this term, or I saw this picture that said, failure stands for falling again and learning, which is brilliant, because
it is brilliant.
Yeah. And then no means new opportunity. Yeah. So how did you navigate the pivot?
Well, it wasn't overnight, and there was a lot of failing. And it's the ability. I heard this saying once of this guy, and I was actually watching some kind of show where people were, had certain types of addiction issues. And he said this, and it always sticks with me. It's not who you are when you fall down, it's who you are when you get back up. And so for me, I went to school. There I was hobbling on a cane. I tapped into every Work BC opportunity there was to educate myself. I got funding to do basic public relation courses. I thought that's where I was going, because web design was basically, you can get so many things for free now. The technology was becoming available that you didn't need to know how to code. And wanting to reinvent myself, once I was well enough, within 6 months, I started working part-time at a job that was unrelated to technology, but very people-related, that I could just pick up occasional shifts. I won't say what that is, but it was in something that was totally diverse than what I had done in the past. And it was working with people in need, but I won't say who,
right.
Just because of you're not supposed to disclose. But and then I also started working for doing communications for a local church, which got me back in the game. But working with parishioners, God bless them, the church was over 110 years old. So when somebody is 90, they said, I was baptized here, like so much respect. But these people weren't embracing technology. And I was doing the bulletin, and as much as I appreciated I was contributing to something bigger than myself, because you needed to communicate, it gave me the funds and the technological, yearning to do something beyond what I was doing. So at the time, I had my best friend was living with me. She's an Australian lady who helped me through my hip replacement, and I, again, God bless you, AK. She was working at Granville Island at Benton Brothers Cheese, and she would come home and tell me these stories about her customers. Now, Granville Island has about 11 million visitors a year. So she served a lot of people a lot of cheese, and she would see how they kind of glaze over this cabinet of not just cheddar, mozzarella, and Swiss. We're looking at stuff that's like Tom du Savoie. Don't you love the way that sounds?
That sounds great.
It sounds
if
really...
I love cheese, I would be going to Thomas de Savoie.
Tom, just see here. And this is where the book title came from, How to Say Cheese. Because a lot of folks were in Canada. Most of us don't speak more than 2 languages, whereas in Europe they speak probably like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And so people were intimidated by these these cheeses that are like wrapped in oak leaves and all of these different beautiful pieces of beauty that are produced around the world. And so I said, well, why don't we educate people? It was like, I said, why don't we give them some edutainment? And so edutainment. That's the key word. We're teaching them something at the same time they're engaged, they feel like they're learning but they're not, and it's loaded with interactivity and visuals. So I started researching online about what kind of software was out there to make a next level book. Now, because I had been a web designer at that time for over 15 years, I already knew about interactivity and how to create graphics and how to embed widgets and all of that. So I didn't come into this just saying, I'm going to make a book. I did, and that was a hell of a learning curve in itself, 2 years in the making, but I was very much about taking things to the next level. I always have been. So this, I thought, okay, let's do it. So it wasn't as easy as let's just do this type of thing, but that's where it started.
What were some of the challenges? What were some of the learning curves that you had?
Oh, boy. Okay. Well, first of all, when you're with somebody who's passionate about a subject that you are just learning about. So I am not a cheese expert. I had to learn about cheese along with making this book. And so my friend was. But her background is she had a degree in agroforestry. So she knew about the soil in which the grass that grew, which the animal ate, which then would infuse the milk, and then out come the taste of the cheese. So think about that kind of brain.
Wow.
Okay? So this individual has a 4-year degree, and then, so when we're writing, and I'm thinking like, okay, the stories that I'm hearing at dinner, and then I'm like, okay, you pick the 29 cheeses that we're going to do from around the world that we're going to share with everybody, and you're going to write it, okay? Like, how do we know if blue cheese has gone bad, and all these other little raw milk debate. And she would write, and then she'd give it to me, and I'm like, it looked like she was writing her thesis all over again, and that's not edutainment, people. So I had to kind of jump.
It's educational.
It's educational, but it's dry, and it's so. What ended up happening is she created this. I ended up co-authoring and try to bring the fun back into it, and I learned along the way. So that was a big challenge right there. The text. So we had an editor number 1. Cynthia Sharp was our first editor. Senior editor, amazing human being, and she just took some mud and turned it into chocolate because I had already come through me, and she took it to the next level. So Cynthia, we love you. From there, we embedded we had to find the visuals, so we had to go several. This is where Benton Brothers, we love you, allowed us to come in on days that they were closed. Granville Island, and we would go in there with 2 canvases, and we would just shoot pictures of cheese. Now, at the time, I used a Canon, my cell phone, and the iPad to take 3 different versions of the same cheese. And at the end of the day, guess what? My cell phone and the iPad won out over a Canon Rebel SLR.
That doesn't surprise me.
It just blew my mind. So we 1,000 pictures. We're trying to marry it together to try to figure out, okay, how can we highlight the producers at the same time? So I was learning about the software, which is iBooks Author, and midway through all of this, my roommate decides to move back to Australia and become a cheese maker.
Oh.
Yeah.
You subtly inspired her.
Well, our fridge, I couldn't get groceries in there because it looked like a cheese cave. And she was at a big turning point in her career. She wanted to make cheese, and she was having kind of like we all do. Where am I doing next? And I said, you know what? I said, what is your dream? She goes, I just want to make cheese. And I'm like, well, why don't you pick the top 3 places that you want to work at in Australia, because she was Australian. And I said, we're going to send them. Now, we'd already started with the branding, creating, because I'm a graphic designer as well. I had created the brand. We started the website. We started our social media. And I even went as far as to put on my LinkedIn account saying, guess what? I'm making an interactive book for the iPad as I'm learning. And but this is paid off, and I'll get back to that in a sec. But nevertheless, so we sent it all out. Not everybody who she pitched out of these 3 top who were accepting internships on these dairies in Australia, not necessarily had an ad out saying we're looking for somebody. So because she had this degree in agroforestry, as I explained about the technology behind that, is 2 of them fought over her.
Wow.
And she said that she was in the process of writing a book. So she got on a plane, and she started working at Holy Goat. And I thought it was funny because at the time I was working at a church, and I thought, well, higher power is at work here. Let's go to this one. So she did 6 months there, and unfortunately at the time, I don't think this is the case anymore, but they had a distributor of theirs went bankrupt, and so they had to do a transition thing, and not everybody could stay on. So at the time, she was in Australia outside of Melbourne, and then what transpired from there is she ended up going to a dairy in Tasmania, which is saying, if you don't know, it's another island off of Australia. So she went there, and because she had written a book, they again, as an author, and being female, she was given this opportunity. So she looked as like an expert. So I'm just putting it out there to people. If you're passionate about something, even though if you're in mid-project, people will still embrace the fact that you're trying to go after your goals. So while she was there, obviously it's meant to be, because her first cloth-bound cheddar won gold for the Australian Food Awards. Wow. So she's now working at Culpets Dairy, and they again hired her based on the fact that the book was published by this time, but they've hired her, and she's working in their cheese room, and she's dives for sea urchin and is using the internals to make high gourmet butters with the Michelin star chefs. So she's living the dream. But part of the challenge was, as I explained her amazing accomplishments, we had to chat back and forth on a weekly basis as I put this book together. And I had 2 more editors, one which I met in Tasmania when I went to go visit her, because she didn't have internet connection. So I'm there, and I'm at this little hub in Tasmania out in St. Helens, and this lady comes up and who's running it, and we end up chatting, and she's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I'm making a book on an iPad. And at the time, we were still struggling with coming up with a big part of the content, which is the history of cheese and all of these other things, because AK was she was trying to work at this one place, and in addition to so she found it challenging because I was saying, you write like a scientist. So she ended up, Jeanette Bailey is one of our editors and co-writers, and she's in Tasmania, and big shout out to you, girlfriend, because she helped Angel, and she went with her for a weekend. So we created this bond, My final editor is Carolyn Affleck, which I've known for 20 years. She's also an author, and she has an amazing book out as well. I'm trying to remember the name. I think it's called Walking for Peace. I could be wrong, but it is amazing. It's about her husband's travels around the world, and he walked around the world, and he was an amazing individual. So anyway, I was very fortunate. But the other part is this is when things happen, and they're supposed to happen. I ended up having 2 sound engineers because a big part of this book is the audio pronunciation of the cheese names. And so my best friend...
So not how I butchered it before. We try to fix that. Okay, fair enough.
So, and that was the big intimidation part of this, is like, how do you add value to so that people felt confident when they're learning about these cheeses, they would actually know how to pronounce them. And so we thought that. So my best friend of 35 years, her daughter... boyfriend is a sound engineer.
Wow.
And so I was telling him about the book, and he's like, I can help you out. So we slid him like basically pocket money, and he let us in, and AK went into the studio. So in the back of the book, we actually show how we did this. There's pictures of us in the sound studio. There's pictures of us shooting in the Benton Brothers on the days off, and what technology. And this was all built on Apple technology. But again, it took 2 years. So AK did this with the sound engineer, Darnell Pleasant. Awesome. Logan. Oh my God. I'm gonna feel bad. I can't remember. I'll remember his name in a moment. The other sound engineer, but nevertheless, basically 2 weeks before AK got on the plane, we were doing this, right? So we built it, and like I said, it went through 3 engineers, and then I had to find an iPad tester. So somebody I worked with at the church named Lenny Hutchings, she was an amazing human being. She's a very loving and smart woman, and she took it upon and helped us. And so it went through many hands. It didn't just like something that we whipped up. So it was a long journey, and then I put it, and then I had to become an iTunes developer in order to and fill out many tax forms, and I'm a registered business, and because I'm selling it on iTunes. So if you go to howtosaycheese.com, there will be links to the book and everything on there, and all different types. You can see all the different awards that we've won, and AK's new butter creations that she's doing in Australia.
The question, a number of questions, of course, but do you have a favorite cheese now?
I really love Comte. That's in the book, and I got to try a lot of these cheeses, and it was it's just you can have it instead of grilled, like an alternative. You can have it on grilled cheese, and I like me some grilled cheese. So
I like me some grilled cheese too, but I like the cheddar cheese.
And actually, there's one if you like that.
No, wait, Swiss. Which cheese do I like?
Does it got holes in it?
No. Can't remember the name of it, but I know what it is. It's the regular cheese, the Kraft slices.
Yeah, that we have a thing in the book where it's like we have a rating system. So by introducing all these different cheeses, people are like, well, they think they can go to Safeway and get them, and not all of them would be available there, as per our Kraft slices. So we gave it a rating like 1 to 5, and 1 would be not featured in the book, and they would be our Kraft slices, and 5 would be like a sizzling hot romance. That's like if you tap on that, it'll say ooh la la.
Ooh la.
So ooh la la. So it's like it's one of those because a lot of places and a lot of people don't realize this, especially in British Columbia. We have 2 cheeses that are featured. One is from Mount Lehman's, and the other one is it's called a Cabret, but because of there's food regulation laws that you can only get these cheeses in British Columbia. They cannot be sold outside of our province or in another country. there's just all these different food regulations around the purchasing of cheese. So that's one part of it. So if you do see things, it'll give you the availability of where the best place is. Maybe you'll have to go to a fine cheese counter, or maybe you can find it at IGA, or I'm not plugging these people. I'm just saying, like, if they have
grocery stores everywhere.
Grocery stores, maybe 7-Eleven. I don't know. Convenience stores, right? So, but yeah, things are evolving. So, I like trying all new flavors. I can't say that I totally like one more than the other, but I'm not really a fan of the stinky cheese, and there is one in the book, and you need a cloche for it. It's is it not? No, that translates into something really naughty. Actually.
So now I have to put it explicit. Oh, it's in French, isn't it?
It is. It's trou de cru. It means, we actually put it in there. It means tear you a new bumhole in French. So when these old French guys would come up to the counter, they go trou de cru, and it's kind of like, you naughty bugger. Anyway, but yeah, so there's hidden icons throughout.
I think
that
is the
book.
first time anyone in history on my podcast, so this is the 152nd recorded episode, has sworn in French.
So, yeah, there's all these little hidden icons. They're animals, and we made it kind of like, I hate to use the Where's Waldo, but it's kind of like little hidden treasures, and they make either audio sounds, or if you tap them, maybe one of the producers' videos would come up. And so to make it fun and interactive, there's also social media widgets that are within the book. So, and you can tap on them, and based on a specific hashtag, it'll load into the most recent into the book. You can take an in-picture book, and all of the producers, regardless of where they are, there will be an interactive map that you can tap on, and the Google map will load, and it'll show you right where the farm is. So we also gave links to their Facebook or their actual websites, so you can have more of a relationship with where's your food coming from. You want to know more about it, and just highlight what's available.
We'll get into that at another time, because I think there's an We'll talk about this a little bit later in a different format in terms of the educational piece a little bit later on. But I do want to ask, and I honestly don't know the answer to this, and you're going to educate me for the next few minutes.
Okay.
As much as you're the audience here. Because, I'm still the guy that loves the paper. I love holding the book. I love it. I think there's something powerful about it, but I know that there's such a great market with the ebook and the iBook. What's the difference between the Kindle and the iBook?
This is an excellent question, Kevin.
Thank you. I ask excellent.
I know, because when I tell people I made an interactive ebook, their eyes glaze over, because, well, first of all, they just think it's the difference between a Kindle reader and what an interactive iBook for the iPad is. The Kindle would be a gray screen, which you see text. You might be able to bookmark things. There may be hyperlinks, but I doubt it, because it's not going to really connect beyond that. So it's kind of like back in the day when we had our television sets that was black and white, and you had to get up and turn the channel, right? So it had one purpose. Whereas now our high definition televisions, you can use a remote and connect to the internet. So imagine like a smart car to a Lamborghini, right? So with being this format of iBooks is only an Apple product, and a lot of people will ask me saying, well, can I get it for Android? And it's unfortunately no, because there's not a sophisticated enough software that would provide the platform in order for this interactivity and to engagement. So it's an Apple product. So if you have iBooks, the app on your phone or on a Mac or on a tablet or like an iPad, you can watch or embrace and enjoy but beyond that, no.
Is there? Do you find that there's a lot of? It's because it sounds like if I was a writer, I am a writer, but if I wanted to write a book, it sounds like a great way to do it because the iBook, because you're like I can see, and one of the things we're going to talk about is the future later, but I could see like imagine Lord of the Rings and walking through those paths and some of the stories that Tolkien told of those paths, and just adding the pictures to it, because you could visualize it, but then adding that visual to it creates such a great experience in reading a book.
Yeah. So I just want to backtrack a second and say print is not dead, people.
No.
And people love it and embrace it.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about is definitely. So what's going out there in terms of compatibility is people are so that they can make more money. Is they put things in an EPUB where you're not going to get the same interactivity, but the Lord of the Rings, so that would be able to, if you would be able to see video and hear the audio, and if you touch something, you might be able to put your 2 cents in, and that communicate with other people within the book. And the beauty of iBooks is that you could, if you had a series of books that are on the iTunes store and you had a hyperlink, so you wanted to reference back, and let's say we're in the third sequence of this series, you could hyperlink back to a statement or a line in the first book, and by zoom, touch it, jump right back into it, right at that spot.
Right.
So there you go.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of this, and you touched on it, is people are using this high-end interactivity, the iBooks format, for education, because their teachers, not all of them, but those that are in private schools are really embracing this. When I went to the iBooks Author Conference for the 3 years, a lot of them are educators, and they're using this technology that they create their own curriculum, and then this is fed basically on a weekly basis to their students which interact, and they can even tell if the students actually used it or done it based on good old everything. But I'm always thinking back to when I was a kid, and there's no control over like what somebody's done, but now it is kind of Big Brother like, and you would know. So it's really inspiring in terms of where the technology is headed. Apple doesn't have the huge market share that Amazon does, so I would wish that Amazon would bring it to the next level and bring something compatible that iBooks Author. But Apple's not interested in creating some kind of compatible software so that you can read it on a different format.
Yeah, that's not their method.
No.
And that's okay. That works for them.
That works for them.
Yeah. So, okay, so we're here now. You have something that you would love to have by November the 30th. Tell us a little bit about we need your vote, people.
Well, there's 2 things I wanted to tell people about. One is if they're like, well, I'm really curious about this cheese book and this interactive thing. So the first one is YVR Authors is an amazing group.
Yes, it is. Great job, Melody.
Yes, actually. Melody, Owen, you rock. You're an amazing. So if you're an author and you just want to connect with other people and learn about what's happening in the publishing world, every once the last Tuesday of the month, people get together, and there's usually an author interview, is Spotlight, and then there's a guest speaker. And I, this Tuesday, am the author in the Spotlight. So instead of just having the typical, how did you do the book, blah, 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 I will be presenting and showing people how this book actually works so that you visually get to see and engage and answer any questions. So if you go to our Facebook account, so YBR Authors on Facebook, if you missed the live stream, it will be on the replay. So that's a shout out for that.
Yeah.
So the next part, Kevin, thank you so much for saying I need your vote. And So being a woman who's reinvented myself and told you all my story is that and winning 11 awards, including Book of the Year in Nashville, which is huge, is that I'm a nominee for the Small Business BC Awards for Best Innovation.
Wow.
And that needs... So you're only allowed to ask people to vote once. And what happens with that vote is if you go to interactivebmedia.com, there's an actual link when you land on my page. You click on it and it'll take you there. If you vote, I will be so grateful. The reason is that based on community votes, so it doesn't matter if you're in British Columbia or not listening to this, you can be anywhere in the world. I've had a lot of support from people that I've met in Germany and London and Australia. Everybody's been helping me out. And what happens is from the ones that receive, the businesses that in that category that receive the most votes, that is now semi-finalist to down to 10. And then I have to present almost like a business plan of like who I am, what I'm doing, and so forth. And then a committee votes and reviews that information, and down to 5, and that would be in the new year. And then, like Shark Tank, 5 of those businesses have to present why they're innovative, what is their next thing, and
how many are entered now? Sorry to interrupt.
I have no idea. It's not really disclosed in my category how many people are. So if I'm not quite sure. I wish I could give you that answer. And actually, you know what, Kevin? I really don't want to know. I guess I'm in it for my own game, and but there's several categories in which people can enter.
Okay, and what are you nominated? What are you wanting for Small Business Award?
It's Best Innovation.
Best Innovation.
So Small Business BC Awards, Best Innovation, Interactive B Media. So the great thing about it is there is a small cash prize that they offer someone. That's not what I'm in it for. You get the winner receives a 1 year of a mentorship.
That's awesome.
So that's what I want, and of course there's some publicity around that, but I'm all about that. And I have gone to school for business in the last year. I actually attended B School through Marie Folio, and my personal mentor is Subi Zimmerman, who's the Instagram expert. She's amazing. I actually went to Cape Cod in May, and I got to do a whole weekend retreat with with her and 26 other people who were under her affiliate, and amazing human beings. So through these 2 programs, and when you talk about how did you get here, it was those 2 programs and having Sue's guidance and having and just other female entrepreneurs giving me the courage and the strength and the support to move forward, and knowing that, you know, I'm not just this little Canadian woman kind of hoping and wishing. I have like this, you know, Facebook groups and other people I can reach out to, and they can give me a kick in the bum and say, and you know, a pat on the back and a hug when I need it, and some really good business advice as well. So that's where I'm coming from, and definitely, you know, I'm very grateful.
So let's talk about the future.
Yeah.
Before we do that, I want to play a little bit of a tech talk from a guy by the name of, and I hope I pronounced this right, his name is Harold Haas.
Haas.
H-A-A-S?
So, yeah, so Haas.
Haas.
I think it would be. It's German, right?
Haas.
Again, about the pronunciation. If we're butchering it. Like,
I apologize, Harold, but this is a
Harold Haas.
Harold Haas.
Haas.
I'm hoping that doesn't.
Haas. It's a Haas.
It's a Haas. He has an idea. I want you to we'll talk about a couple of things here. I'm going to play a couple minutes of this, and then we're going to get back and talk about your future. B, we're going to talk about your future. Are you scared?
No, but I was before to interrupt, it was just yeah, actually, let's roll with this guy.
Let's roll with this guy.
And it'll blow your mind.
Yeah.
light bulbs installed already. So we have the infrastructure there. Look at the ceiling. You see all these light bulbs. Go to the main floor. You see these light bulbs. Can we use them for communications? And yes, what do we need to do? And there's one thing we need to do is we have to replace these inefficient incandescent light bulbs and fluorescent lights by these new technology of LED light bulbs. An LED is a semiconductor. It's an electronic device. And it has a very, very nice and cute property. Its intensity can be modulated at very high speeds, and it can be switched off at very high speeds. And this is a fundamental, basic property that we exploit with our technology. So let's show how we do that. Let's go to the closest neighbor to the visible light spectrum, go to remote controls. You all know the remote controls have an infrared LED. Basically, you switch on the LED, and when it's off, you switch it off, and it creates a simple low-speed data stream in 10,000 bits per second, 20,000 bits per second, not usable for a YouTube video. What we have done is we have developed a technology with which we can, first of all, replace the remote control by light bulb. We transmit with our technology not only a single data stream, we transmit thousands of data streams in parallel at even higher speeds. And the technology we have developed, it's called SIM-OFDM and spatial modulation. These are the only technical terms. I'm not going into details, but this is how we enabled that light source to transmit data. You will say, okay, it's nice. It's a slide created in 10 minutes. But not only that. What we've done is we have also developed a demonstrator, and I'm showing for the first time in public this visible light demonstrator. And what we have here is an ordinary desk lamp. We fitted in an LED light bulb worth $3, put in our signal processing technology. And then what we have here is a little hole, and the light goes through that hole. There's a receiver. The receiver will convert these little subtle changes in the amplitude that we create there into an electrical signal. And the signal is then converted back to a high-speed data stream. In the future, we hope that we can integrate this little hole into these smartphones. And not only integrate a photo detector here, but maybe use the camera inside.
So you're smarter than me.
I don't know about that.
Translate this for us. And what are we hearing from Harold here? At least I have his first name right.
Yeah.
Before I maybe I'll do my rant after your comment.
Okay. So I'll explain about what technology that he's using is so advanced. Basically, it's a clean technology. It's a spectrum using light. So using LED technology, it's going to transmit data. And so by the use of light, it will be able to, so kind of like beacon software, which I'll talk about in a minute, is where I'm headed as well, is that this technology is based on, so if you have light through this LED with a microchip inside, you'll be able to transmit data, and it will be secure, and it won't. So a good example he uses is, and I would encourage you to watch this TED Talk. It'll blow your mind. And I bet you, Kevin, you'll put a link to it. Mm-hmm. Is that, so if you were operating on a patient, well, the light generated that you're using to see is also what's the energy behind what's the tools that you're using to operate on the individual as well. So you bypass electricity. You know, this is the means of which you transmit data and energy. I mean, a part of that. I'm sure it's not going to eliminate electricity because we need it, but this technology is basically gonna. Wi-Fi is expensive, clunky, and dirty, and it's far-reaching, but this is superior. It's basically he's taken where you can have light anywhere in the world. Like if he gives the explanation of when you're on the plane, the lights could basically charge your laptop, right? If you're, and he uses another example, and again, I'm really suggesting you watch his talk, is that cars have LED lights in them when you're driving, so even on the street lights. So what if your other car knew that they could talk to each other as you're driving past and could avoid collisions based on that technology?
I could survive in Richmond. Sorry.
There you go. There you go. But it's never ending. It's just, if you have light, you have. It's a clean technology, and he explains it far better than I can because he's the physicist that created it.
Right.
But yeah. So I'm looking into a technology. May I speak about this?
Of course.
Is that
it's your show.
So? It's my show. Is that so? Knowing my background, that I was a web designer, and then I've created this interactive book for the iPad. I'm looking. So when I was in Nashville, there was this gentleman who did a presentation on beacons, and that got me so lit up. I was already on board with NFC, which is near field communications, and Moo cards. If you check that out, you can basically, it's almost like a lot of people know what QR codes are, and they're not kind of going away, but they weren't really embraced so much. So NFC, so the Moo card example is you could load your data into this business card, and you can change it, and if you zap it with your cell phone, it can automatically take you to a web page or an app, or share your latest beats if you were a DJ. So there's that technology. So where beacon technology is it's independent of Wi-Fi, and it does push communications. So I'm going to geek out here for a minute, because I'm like, woo! This makes me excited, because my company's mission is to connect everything and empower everyone. So that's where I'm really headed, and this beacon technology is already being used in like museums. So there are these small discs that are battery powered. They're self-contained. You preload them with software information so they talk to one another, and they're proximity based. So usually they don't have a reach beyond 70 meters. So if you were looking at a Van Gogh painting and you walk up to it and you have perhaps the app loaded onto your phone, it will automatically, some museums automatically give you a low-key smartphone to begin with, and that's what you zoom around. When I was in Tasmania, I went to see the Mona, and it's very similar. So what would happen is as you approach the painting, it will let you know. You can all of a sudden listen to the artist speak about their painting or what inspired them. It'll give you information about that. So the beacon technology is just vast, and you can use it for events. A lot of hotels, high-end hotels, are using it now. So if you check in, automatically one part of this is you're like, well, I really don't want people sending stuff to my phone. So some of it is you have to turn on the notifications in order to receive these messages, because some of this software or this technology is you don't need an app in order to receive the push notifications. So Android users, you can shove things into people's phones. iOS is a little different, so Apple products, you would have to turn on notifications. So if you booked into a high-end hotel, automatically you wouldn't need a room key anymore. One of those little plastic cards, it would automatically open your door, but on your way, let's say you're on a giant cruise ship or something, and you're trying to get no, and it tells you GPS, go turn this way to find your hotel room. Oh, as you're walking past the restaurant, it's sending you push notifications that, oh, well, welcome, you get 20% off your order. And you know, depending on where you're going, is like, here's a spa treatment. And so imagine that if you're owning a coffee shop, and this technology exists now, if you're walking past a donut store and automatically they have a beacon set up and your notifications are turned on, and it will tell you, hey, come on in, cup of joe on us, right? So there was a movie that we were watching earlier, Kevin, we were talking about with Tom Cruise.
Minority Report.
Yeah.
It's the advertising scene, if you remember that, and that was back in 2002. So he's walking through, and based on his algorithms, his personal algorithms, they are advertising specifically to him whatever those products are. And we're actually, now I think about it as you were talking, we're actually closer to this than we realize.
Yeah.
Because if you look at what Facebook and Twitter are doing social media-wise, and even Instagram, they are tailoring their advertising to what they're seeing your interests are at this point in time.
Your keywords.
Yeah, your keywords are what they're doing, their advertising.
Type in that you're going to a wedding, all of a sudden you're getting, and then there's the Facebook pixel that if you put it embedded on your website, automatically, if you visited like a travel place, next thing you know, the ads that you're seeing on Facebook are all like, we know, like the Bay is famous for this. Oh, we know you like these pair of boots, B. They're waiting for you. And actually, just to let you know, Facebook has now beacons, and they will help you set it up, and they have a program specifically for this to help small businesses with traffic. So where I'm headed is I want to start working with people who are creating small events and to test this out. And because I've created a book for the iPad, I just see this going one step further. And so if your attendees are having this event, imagine the ease of which they would be able to navigate through a conference, and where these push notifications and beacons are guiding them through and giving them a different experience. Instead of feeling like herded cattle, they are a part of the experience. And so I'm all about that. I want to engage people into the point where they feel inclusion, not exclusion, right? I know that we're all like, if you go on any transit down, like 9 out of 10 people are looking at their phones or they're plugged in. And I'm hoping that I want to be a part of technology that I know that that's not going to go away. But when people are engaged in technology, encourages them to be in real life conversation opposed to into their phone and talking through the phone in order to talk to somebody.
Yeah. And the other thing, and I've heard a couple people talk about this, but it's not talked a lot. But the cell phone costs and the Wi-Fi data costs right now with the companies here in Canada are quite frankly exorbitant. They're one of the most expensive in the world. And someone like me who needs to be on his phone like 24/7, 365, or feels that way, what helps me in terms of what my skills are racks up these bills. And it's great, the idea of Li-Fi, that's the term that it is, gives you the opportunity to cut down that cost to make things a little bit more affordable.
So just to jump in, that gentleman, that TED Talk was in 2011.
Yes. So 7 years ago.
You have a great theory on this. So thinking how great and clean this technology is and how secure it is and how fast it is.
Oh, they're not going to want this. It's the electric car part two. The electric car came through and there was a resistance. And there is a great I can't remember the name of the documentary on this right now, but there was a great documentary on how, and there was even a movie on it with Greg Kinnear and Gilmore Girl. I have a crush on.
Oh. It's out.
Lorelai Gilmore. Her. Yeah. there was a great movie on that. So that we've seen this already. So I'm not trying to debunk the cell phone companies here. They're doing their thing. But it's not something that I think they're going to be really excited about.
No.
Because, it's about money.
It is.
I mean, we talk about this with a lot of things. Like, we talked about this with even the Edmonton Eskimo nickname. It's not going to change unless people stop buying the uniforms, stop purchasing product. They'll change it. Till they don't, it's fine, right? But it's about the money. But I still think it's a really innovative technology that people have to look at. And when we are talking about cleaner energy and being environmentally conscious, I think that this is important.
It's a huge game changer, and right now he's winning a lot of awards. And people are finally, I think the Earth is like, we're basically a fish tank that nobody's cleaned.
Yeah.
So nobody's cleaning the tank. And so it's only, there's an Indian proverb or something. I remember seeing it in like a what do you call it, in Commercial Drive, one of the coffee shops. It was something about when the last fish is dead and all, something like this. People will realize that money, I don't know, is some kind of name. I'm doing it disjustice, so please, if there's any First Nations folk that can correct me and put that down, let us know.
Great.
It would be great. But a huge impact is it's until the resources are basically running out, and to the point where it's so expensive to maintain fossil fuels and all of those things, people are looking towards clean energy. And that's why the Tesla is finally coming around, because, people want to be a part. And I'm really hopeful for millennial people, folk, and the up and coming generations. They're not buying into like, let's rinse, repeat, and do. They're more conscious of what's happening to the earth. And so I think those. But again, it's who's got the money. And I hate to say it, as the baby boomers start to decline in number, that's when you're going to see a lot of change, because they hold a lot of the purse strings right now.
Yep. Yeah. I can see that. But, I mean, I think, this is a little off topic, but I think we forget the millennials are actually influencing and challenging the baby boomers now.
Yes, they are.
To what they're thinking. I mean, there's so many people critical of the millennials, but the innovation and the challenge that the millennials have put forth has been something that I think should be applauded. I think a lot of people, and I always put this out there, people are like, I'm not into technology, and I don't like using that voice, but and then I always say, and they're like, I don't want, and I'm like, okay, fair enough, right? But when you get sick and you go to the hospital, tell them to use technology from 1950. Yeah.
Not the most latest.
Yeah.
Please don't give me that.
Yeah.
But I want you, back in the good old day.
In.
So you can't pick and choose. Innovation's going to change. And the way that we use it is, there's always going to be the ugly in everything. Mm-hmm. Somebody's going to always exploit technology. I mean, I think, like, Snapchat was basically just free porn when it came out.
Yes, it was.
It was. But
absolutely.
Now Instagram kind of. And here's my prediction. I think Snapchat, you'd be gone in a couple of years, and basically because Instagram, which is owned by Facebook, is on the daily, upgrading and changing, and borrowing and taking the innovations of Snapchat, from those face filters to the Instagram stories, to which, if you have a business, people, Instagram's
dead, though.
No, it's not. But it's not going to be around. How can it compete with the value and the I don't know how many people are on Instagram right now, but it's in the millions. I think it's beating out Snapchat.
I'd have to look into that. I mean, my issue with Snapchat remains my issue with Snapchat. I don't understand why you're sending me a picture that I can only look at for 4 seconds, or whatever it is, whatever time it is.
Which is going to, be gone within 24 hours.
Right. I don't understand, because the idea of the picture has always been the power of that moment. And I think that's where Snapchat has missed out.
And Instagram has jumped in because they realized people. So now you can save those.
Yeah. Yeah.
And save them to your phone, and then maybe repurpose them at a later time because of the fact that you may have captured an amazing moment.
Yeah. And Instagram is doing well in making sure those moments are captured by everybody.
Yeah.
The black and white challenge, which I sort of failed again. But
yeah, I failed too.
I'll fix that. But, you know, it's Snapchat. I mean, to give Snapchat credit, Facebook is using some Snapchat ideas, and they're creating the faces, and that's neat for some. I think my face looks great the way it is, and I don't think it needs anything else, and they say I have a face for radio anyway. So I think that innovation, I don't know if it's dead, but I think Snapchat needs to think about where they're going.
It's appealing to a younger crowd.
Yep.
It's definitely that. I mean, Steve Dotto had his own, and I love him. By the way, I'll put a plug out for him. He's the one that introduced. Yeah, he's amazing, and he did this thing for Snapchat for old farts, right? Like how to use it and what is it, and I had it on my phone for a while, and then I just deleted it because I'm dedicating. With Instagram, I have a business account and then I have a personal account. And I'm engaging with brands that, you know, I just received, like, and I'll give a plug quickly to somebody who just sent me a bottle of wine and a whole, like, this is all through social media because they see I have so many, like, I have over 5,000 followers on Twitter, and I have not as many on Instagram, but those are stronger relationships I have on Instagram, I feel. But nevertheless, Blue Oceans just sent me some wine in the mail, and I'm like, hey, along with like a party pack.
KEV.
Yeah. And so so there is the power of that connectivity and engagement, and I would say to people, you know, it's one way that makes people now can become an influencer. You're like a micro celebrity. Those people, if you're passionate about something, have an Instagram account. There's people who don't even have websites. Yeah. Trav the Beach Boy. Oh my! I'm just like he's old enough to be like one of my kids, but he's got like almost close. He's a Canadian boy from Edmonton, who's absolutely stunning, but he's got like almost 1 million Instagram followers, and he's now a model in Los Angeles. He doesn't have a web page. I think maybe he does now, but he didn't start out that way. The other thing I want to talk about is influencers. Is this kid? His name is Backpack Kid, and he is 15 years old. He got on Instagram. I'm not sure if he did it on Snapchat first, but I think it was mostly on Instagram. And he has this really weird little dance. He's just a skinny little kid, and he swings his arms back and forth really fast, and it's funky. And Katy Perry saw him on Instagram, and she's like, "You're in my video." He's in Swish Swish. And now he's got 1 million Instagram followers. He was just on Gary Vaynerchuk's did if you go on YouTube and check this out, go up Backpack Kid with Gary. He's talking about how to monetize his fame, and so he's teaching him like, okay, you're a backpack kid. Nobody knows what his name is, and he was, you know, there. He's talking about, okay, you're gonna contact all these backpack companies, and this is how you're gonna monetize yourself. He's like, well, I don't want to be doing this for the rest of my life, and he's like, no, but you're gonna grow from this. You're gonna learn, and you're gonna build these relationships. So the opportunity, if you're passionate, social media is definitely the way to go. Interactivity, but reaching out to people, and then meeting them in real life. Yeah, I think that's the key here.
Yeah, it's the well-roundedness of it.
Yes, it can open the door for you. Mm-hmm. It's not the only tunnel. Mm-hmm. There, you have to go through the other side.
Yeah. One guy, you were mentioning a couple people, and I know this is a little off topic, but Dax Justin from Calgary. He just started taking pictures, and this guy just posted them. They were like, holy crap, look out how good he is. And he's created a hell of a following. Yeah. So just do stuff.
do what you're passionate
Do what
about.
you're passionate about.
And,
Yeah.
yeah. And then they always say the money or whatever will follow. Because going back to the 11 awards that I won, we didn't go into this project going, we're going to win awards.
Yeah.
It was about my best friend wanting to educate customers, which in turn got her dream job, not one but two, an internship. It was, for me, it gave me a vehicle to say, here's my comeback, right? If I ran the show and I did something, this is how I'd roll. And that's what I did. And then through YVR Authors, now I'm going to mess up her name and I don't want to, so Teresa, please forgive me. Narcisio?
I want to say Nicasio.
Nicasio, thank you,
Yeah.
Kevin. My very first meeting, I was like sick as a dog, and I really shouldn't have gone because I didn't want to spread any germs. But she was speaking, and she was talking about how to promote your book and everything else. And I ended up winning her cookbook, which is Yum. Amazing, gluten-free, plant-based cookbook, beautifully done. And she talked about putting your name out to these awards. And I'm thinking, hey, maybe I should try this, because as I'm telling you, Amazon's got like this 70% share of all books, regardless if they're print or digital. And I was having a tough go of how do I promote this? And no, it's not available in print, and no, it's not for Android. So I thought, okay, I'm going to start applying for these awards. And I had to bust. I'm telling you, I was kicking down doors, telling these awards. So there's a lot of awards out there that will say that they're indie publishers, they want your book, and they're ebook based. And yet they didn't accept iBooks. And so I would write the person in charge and say, hey, I've got this book. I would really like it. You're promoting self-publishing, and it's an interactive book. I would really appreciate it if you would give us the opportunity to be a part of taking this to the next level. And so majority of them said yes. Majority of them said yes.
I would love for there to be, we'll wrap this up in a second. I have a couple quick stories though. I'm, just to share a little bit personal here, but I'm trying to promote this podcast. This is my lifeblood, my baby, my juice, my jazz, and I would love for those types of things. And I got to work on promoting this a lot better and work on that, ad nauseum. And one of the things that I'm not seeing, and I've talked to this with a few friends, and I'm not going to get too much into this, but the podcast network in America compared to the podcast network in Canada is night and day, because there is a network. I feel like in Canada there's a bunch of us doing podcasts, but we're just so fractioned, and I would love to bring that together. And it would be awesome to have a podcast award show.
Totally.
I actually should start it. I'll do the podcast awards.
There you go. I think West Coast Podcast Awards and Academy, and those that are winners can help mentor those that see there. So there's the money that you make it. And that's the other thing about these awards is if you want to submit, and how they kind of make that divide is you have to pay to enter, and they are US dollars. In addition, if you do win some of these awards, if you want the certificate, you have to actually pay for it. And oh my, if you want one of the trophies, one of them I do, which I want, but it's like $225. So it is a money-making thing. In some things, you have to be discerning, as Teresa suggested, you have to be discerning as to who these awards are, because some of them, they're just... Right. If you submit, there you go, you get a sticker. I would say that the awards, which I just wanted to go through really quick, if that's okay, Kevin.
Sure.
Really quick.
We are at the Vancouver Inspiration Lab, so they're like, get out!
Get out.
Soon.
So I just want to do a shout out to these for acknowledging, and I just think that it's good not just to say, yeah, sure, what awards did you win? So we were included, as Kevin mentioned, into the SFU Fraser University Personal Library and Rare Book Collection. That's huge. We were the first iBook. We were featured in the 5 years of iBook Author. It's a publication, and iBook itself. It's a free book. So if you look up iBook Author Conference, you can download it from there. The AVA Digital Awards for Best eBook, which was a platinum. Gold Summit Awards for Interactive Media, which I shared with the NASA Multi-Touch Sphere. Platinum for Hermes Creative Awards for Best eBook. We won gold for Next Generation Indie Book Awards in New York in the Harvard Club, which I got to wear a medal around my neck and go to New York. We were the first iBook. They are like the indie. Silver Gold eBook Award for Best Multimedia in a Book. The finalist for Book Excellence in a Book Interior. That was an award, but there was only one finalist. And then the iBook Author Conference in Nashville, we won 5 awards, which were Best Use of an Interactive Elements in a Multi-Touch Book. We won Best Cookbook of the Year, Best Photography in a Picture Book, so there we go, back to the iPhone. Best Book of the Year, Nonfiction Overall, and then Best Book of the Year. Thank you, Kevin, for having me. I thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to, especially as a woman in tech, a voice, which is, as you talk about being Canadian, I don't know if it's our population base, but there's not that many of us.
No. And how do we find you again?
So you can find me several ways. My company website, which I'm hoping that you'll vote, and is interactivebmedia.com. I'm on Twitter and Instagram. And Twitter is interactiveb, and you follow me, I'll follow you back. And Instagram, interactivebmedia. And if you want to check out the cheese book, is howtosaycheese.com.
All right, and you have till November 30th to vote for the award, so check that out as well. You can vote once. You can follow me on Facebook, Kevin Olenek, Twitter at KEVOLE, SoundCloud, KEVOLE. I drop my pen again. Spreaker.com, KEVOLE. You can like and subscribe on YouTube, Kevin Olenek. If you want to join the Patreon movement, feel free to do that at Kevin Olenek. If you do not want to and find a way you want to support, you can message me and we can talk about that in some way, shape, or form. We've got a bunch of stuff going on. We are going to give away a promo code when we talked to Erin Chase last week, her book with Palace Walls. What's that?
I have a promo code as well that I'm willing to give away.
Okay. Do we do that as a contest?
I don't know. That's up to you, Kevin.
Okay.
However she's doing it, I'll do the same.
We did it as a contest.
Okay.
Well, maybe no. Let's mention the promo code now. Your promo code right now. And then people will listen to the podcast. And then we thought we learned this.
Sorry. I throw that in at the last moment. No, I have 2 promo codes that I am more than happy. If you have an iPad or an Apple, tell us your favorite cheese at Benton Brothers.
Okay. All right. There we go. Okay, perfect. So we're going to do that. Also, we've got James Murray transitioning from school to broadcasting. We're going to talk about his story. That will come out Monday. We're going to do a Grey Cup preview and then a Grey Cup recap and a whole bunch of other stuff, etc., etc., etc. Thanks, B, for coming on. The picture you see of a cover photo was done by Leah Hammond. The song that you heard was Something New. The TED Talk was from Harold Haas. Hope I pronounced that correctly. And everything else. Hope you have a great rest of your day wherever you are. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.